Hello, welcome to session 19. We have been talking about the certain disciplines of disciplines of study that are structured, and we were talking about the Kabbalah. So I would like to say that regarding the study of the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, it's considered to be very complex. I have heard it said that in one of the well-known faiths, they did not allow their teachers to begin studying the Kabbalah until they had served in the more normal capacity for as long as 30 years, to allow them to establish a stable, well-rooted foundation of knowledge, and, in a manner of speaking, to prove themselves because of the complexity and the spiritual nature of the Kabbalistic studies. It's not an area of study that one would recommend to the neophyte. Should you decide to undertake a serious study of the Kabbalah, it should be noted and remembered during your reading and study that there are considered by some to be, generally, two approaches to the study of the Kabbalah. One would be the traditional Jewish study, which considers that the Messiah is yet to appear, and the other would be the study that considers that the person of the Messiah, the human person whose spirit is one with that of the universal Christ, has already come to this planet. Although there are aspects of both studies that many would consider to be the same, this particular speaker prefers the latter approach and believes in the latter approach. As mentioned earlier, the main components of the Kabbalah consist generally of books called the Sefer Yetzirah and the Zohar, as well as the Tree of Life. Excuse me. The Tree of Life is simply a symbolical way of representing how creation happened, its basic order, etc., as well as representing positive and negative polarity, the two aspects of existence that form the basic foundation from which the material universe is created. There are other books that you might find helpful if you're truly interested in studying the Kabbalah. I'll mention two before long, but if I may, I'd like to suggest beginning at the top of the book list first. That will be given in a later session, and slowly working your way through those books first. If you don't remember anything else from this series of videos, please remember, studying of esoteric things and spiritual matters is something that takes time. It is not something to be rushed. In fact, just the opposite. Please remember, therefore, to take your time. The spirit entities that watch over you, your guides and your own higher self, excuse me, observe carefully your approach and attitude and will help you go forward excuse me, when they know you're ready. If you watch these videos carefully, more than once over a period of many years, I trust and hope, if you are truly a serious seeker, once or twice a year would be very worthwhile after you've seen them the first time, to keep reinforcing the information. Then you're likely to find many answers here that you may have missed the first or the second or the third time through. As mentioned above, if you truly feel that you need to do more reading or study of the Kabbalah, there are a number of books for that purpose. Remember, however, that a study of this type is not recommended to the neophyte or the beginning learner on the path. Excuse me. Two of those books are Concepts of Kabbalah by William G. Gray and The Mystical Kabbalah by Dion, D-I-O-N, Fortune. I recommend reading judiciously once you do make the decision to read or study further on the Kabbalah. Be aware that some of the most important representations made by the tree, in the opinion of the speaker, are as follows. And some would disagree with me regarding this, but I believe it to be so. Pardon me. Kether, the top Sephirah, represents the God of all that exists, which is another way of saying that Kether represents God as the totality of the Trinity, that is, being at the same time the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. While Chokmah, or Chokmah, or however you pronounce it, depending on your understanding of the Jewish alphabet and the Jewish language, Chokmah, I believe, closer, represents God the Father. And again, as I said, many would probably disagree with that representation of the first two Sephirah. And who is to say that they would be wrong? Binah, on the left, God the Holy Spirit. And Tifereth, God the Son, the universal Christ. A Sephirah is one of the circles, so-called, on the tree. It includes representation of those planets that were known at the time of the beginning of these studies, when the design of the tree was created by man, but perhaps inspired by God. I believe it to be so. The more modern and the more correct tree mentioned earlier takes into account planets from more recent knowledge. If you read carefully or see carefully, you will find that all of these things being used were included as symbols in order to help teach certain very important truths. Because of the fact that they are simply different ways of representing these same truths, one symbol in a discipline of study may equate to another symbol in a different discipline of study. These are sometimes represented in what are called tables of correspondences. Perhaps it would be wise at this point to issue a word of caution regarding the study of the Kabbalah. Excuse me. I'm sorry. There are those who are so concerned about having things the way they want them that they attempt to make use of principles that some might call Kabbalistic magic. The use of magic in general, whether it is white or black, in order to have a certain outcome based on what the perpetrator wants to have happen, is strongly discouraged by this speaker as a practice. Let this be a word to the wise, if the wise will but heed that word. The Tree of Life, like the rest of the Kabbalah, and like other paths or disciplines of study, is intended to impress upon the consciousness of those who study it truths about existence, about life, about themselves, and about creation and the Creator. Like the tree, rooted in Malkuth, which represents the earth, with its branches reaching into the heavens, we, humankind, all have a similar duality, with our feet grounded on the earth in this material world, the physical world, and our spirit reaching upwards for the heavens. There are a number of additional things that could be said about each Sephirah and each path, but enough has been discussed here to give you a general idea of the appearance of the tree, and also for the purposes of this series of videos. Study the images of the tree you saw from the internet, or that you pulled off from the internet, and you may want to replace this video regarding some of the information mentioned earlier regarding the three columns that are known as the pillars of the tree, where you have the tree in front of you to look at. Excuse me. I must have a little problem with my throat this day. They talk about now the tarot, and it is a set of symbols generally depicted on a deck of cards, but it could just as easily be in the form of a book or even a grouping of pages. The tarot was created for the same reason that other such disciplines or forms of study were created: to teach, through the use of symbols, some of the information contained in ancient esoteric truths that have been around for much longer than most people realize. Some of these truths are the same one that are taught in alchemy, the Kabbalah, the Holy Grail legends, and other branches of the same tree of knowledge. Among those important truths are included the following: that God is, and that God in being is the source of all. That there is a duality of polarity, both positive and negative, in virtually all of existence. Excuse me. That this duality, with the use of variations and vibrational frequencies, accounts for virtually all existence on the material plane, and may I suggest perhaps on other planes also. That human beings, having come from God, choose to incarnate here on this planet to help them learn the things that they need to know, so that eventually they can no longer need to return here, but can return to the source from which they came, but do so, return in a state more perfected than the state in which they originally left. Again, that these human beings reincarnate here time and time again as a part of the normal process of learning the lessons that are needed from here in order to continue to advance on their journey back to God, the Source. That we at a higher level, a higher consciousness level than physical consciousness, choose our parents as well as various life circumstances, situations, and persons with whom we come into contact. We sometimes say that we're drawn to these. This will then give us the opportunities that we will need to correctly make the decisions necessary to eventually master our lessons here so that we no longer need to continue repeating the cycle of reincarnation on this planet, even though we may choose to reincarnate here from time to time after that in order to serve. That in order to complete our return to God in the most perfect manner possible, we must eventually be successful in our quest to attain Christhood through living by the example that others before us have set. The cards in the tarot deck with their symbols represent not only such truths as these, but also various aspects of the different stages of human development, or even some aspects of the different situations that we must meet and master in our lives here. We're destined to continue to meet these life situations until we successfully learn the lessons involved and thereby master those aspects of life here and continue to go on to other lessons until we have completed all our needed time here. The symbols used are designed to impress upon the consciousness of the student the meaning and importance of the principle or principles involved. It is not necessary for the purposes of this video to discuss each symbol and its meaning in detail. There are numerous books that can serve that purpose. Some of these books agree as to the meaning of the various symbols, while some do not. The principles and truths being taught by the use of these symbols, however, are a much more important aspect of the tarot than such quibbling about which book is right and which book is wrong. Even more important, though, is whether those who use the tarot correctly learn those principles and truths. To become involved in discussion of which books are correct and which are not would be a distraction from the more important work of learning the principles and truths involved in the symbols. Thank you for watching. In our next session, number 20, we will consider more of the tarot, or tarot, and a common theme in all of these disciplines. You're invited to view all of our video sessions, but we hope you'll tune in for the next one, number 20. Thank you very much.